Hello, welcome, good evening, willkommen, and thanks for coming and showing up or holding and waiting for the late start. Like the real war, life got in the way, and I had to deal with real life things. This is the War Room. This is day 64 of Ukraine's defense of a Russian incursion that began back on February 24th? 28th? Sorry. I knew I should have probably studied that a little bit better. Anyway, it's been a long day. So yeah, late start, sorry. Had to move my dead water heater out for heavy trash pickup day. Coworker had to bring me my dolly from work. And that required me to wait for him to get here. So he's here. And it's done. So that's out of my life. Yes, I have hot water. No more army showers until it breaks the next time, which is great. Let me give you a really quick update of what happened today, and then we're going to get right into the news because I have my panelists who have shit to do, just like you guys have shit to do. I'm really going to try to get this down to an hour today. Problem is we have a lot of stories, and one of them is huge, like content-wise, it's gigantic, so just bear with me for that one. I'm probably going to make you lose your lunch twice because I have 2 photos of Joe Biden. Just bear with it. Yesterday, I had talked about my desire to own an RPK, and some of you know that I've been watching and eyeballing the Romanian kit builds from PSA. They used the Generation 3 parts for that build, and originally they were $1,300-ish. And I thought, yeah, I think I'd like to have that because I have a small one. I have a baby bear, a mama bear, and I need the papa bear. And papa bear was available yesterday for $1,549 or some shit. And I'm like, oh, great, they jacked it up $200. So the consensus was kits are getting more scarce. Sure, okay. And I had to figure out how I was going to come up with the $1,692 after tax and shipping. Didn't have an answer for that yesterday. But by the time I got home from work, they were out of stock. So I'm like, I guess I have time to sort of figure that out now. And then today happened. And then Mikhail Nightstrikesky, also known as Nightstrike, jumped on my Discord today at like 3 o'clock. He's like, ooh, 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 ooh. I'm like, what? He's like, you got to get on right now. I'm like, what? And he goes, it's for sale. They're back. And I'm like, what do you mean they're back? And he goes, they're back. In stock. Go get one, you idiot. So I looked. And I thought, okay, I do have the plan. So I started putting that plan into action, which required me to move money from my brokerage account into my bank account. And usually that's a very fast process. So I thought, cool, let's do it. Boom, sent the wire over. Then I proceeded to watch for the next 2 hours the money not hit my account. I'm like, what the hell is going on over at Charles Schwab? I'm like, what is going on, right? So I'm going to do this right now in real time, just to see if it's in there by now. Because there's a horrible ending to this story. Because before we went on air, I refreshed the page. And you know what happened? They're out of stock again. And I guess it doesn't matter because the money's still not in my account. According to Schwab, it won't be in my account until tomorrow morning. God damn it. So I don't get an RPK. The universe does not want me to have an RPK. I don't know why. Daddy wants an RPK. If I don't get the PSA one, I have found, I think they're called Rome Arms. It's a Romanian Cougar, or the Cougar plant built RPK. It's called the AES-10. And I found one of those, and it's reasonably priced, but I have to wait a week because it's an auction. And the one thing I do like about that one is it has a carry handle, kind of like, I think I like a BAR. Yeah, it has a carry handle. So I was like, I kind of like that. So I was thinking, if I get the PSA one, it's going to undergo some changes anyway. I was going to put the Zenico furniture on it, go completely crazy with it, and then just use a Picatinny rail-mounted carry handle for it, so that solves that problem. But if I wanted to keep the original furniture on it, I was going to have the Romanian carry handle mount and handle plug welded to the rear side block like the Romanian one. because my neighbor's an industrial welder, and he would have no problem just, plug welding that. Be like, there you go. But now that I think about it, I'm going to do the Zenitco change. So I can just get the pick rail mounted one. No big deal. That's if I buy that one. Actually, that's if I buy either one of them. Fuck it. Okay, like I said, tons of stories. Daddy didn't get an RPK. Dogs are all cool and healthy. Water heater's done. Life moves on. And tomorrow's Friday. Yeah, tomorrow's Friday. Okay, so let's go ahead and just get my panelists in. We're going to go straight into it. So here is Scott and Night Strike and...
Hey, how's it going?
the Polish Hammer.
Oh, we're going live. Okay.
All right, we're going straight into this. So fuck it. We're going live. No, we're not starting in Poland today.
That was yesterday, Warsaw. That was yesterday.
Yeah, that was yesterday.
Every time you mention Polish Hammer, that's what's going to happen.
Jesus Christ. That was the name of a wrestler, by the way, or a boxer. I think
It's the band.
Well, there was a wrestler before, and there's a boxer now. Either way, first story actually comes out of Kherson. So here you go. Photo. This is a woman in Kherson, draped in the flag, at a protest, all by herself, in front of all those soldiers, those lonely, rapey soldiers. 7:30 a.m. in Ukraine. Rockets were fired at the occupied city of Kherson in southern Ukraine, temporarily knocking out Russian television channels in the area late Wednesday after it hit the television tower. Russian and Ukrainian news reports or outlets had reported. Hey, that's great, right? They knocked out their own state propaganda. Awesome. Russia has occupied Kherson since the start of the invasion. The attack came from the area of Ukrainian forces in the northwest, Russian news agencies reported. Russia began broadcasting in Kherson last week. So, yeah, if you're going to take over our stations, then we're just going to have to knock them down. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I forgot to greet the chat. So, good evening to Shady Hill Homestead, Terry Scherer, PNW Woods, and the finest of apes, who says that I couldn't just use an axe to drain out the remaining 250 pounds of water. Niet. I took everything apart that I thought was usable out of it, though. And let's see. He says, in a previous life, you committed a few acts of unspeakable evil. So you having an RPK so close, but just out of your grasp is part of the hell you've been allotted. No, see, the part of my punishment is the five major mistakes in 5 potential marriages that I could have been in. That's my punishment. And the fact that I spent enough money in the last 5 months that I could have owned a Barrett. That's my punishment.
He went to Barrett.
I could have went to Barrett. I could have gone to FK Brno. I could have went to Lago Alien. Now I can't. Damn. Moving on. Next story. Here we go. And this looks just like yesterday, doesn't it? Because they do the same type of update every day. But the date changed. And I probably should have noticed or mentioned the scroller is updated. And boy, were Ukrainians busy. Like, I think they knocked out like 30-something tanks today. So that's kind of cool.
Most likely.
Yeah, and APCs and a couple of jets. So, I mean, they were pretty busy. Let's see.
Well, they're Ukrainians.
Well, yeah, it's what they do. Ukrainians doing Ukrainian things against Russians that are doing Russian things.
It's true.
Around 20 Russian Navy vessels, including submarines, remain in the Black Sea operational area, but the country has been unable to replace its heavy cruiser Moskva because the Bosporus Strait remains closed to non-Turkish warships. The UK Defense Ministry said this in their Thursday morning update. Despite the embarrassing losses of the landing ship Saratov and cruiser Moskva, Russia's Black Sea Fleet retains the ability to strike Ukrainian and coastal targets. Well, duh.
I'm glad that at least Turkey is upholding that ban.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Moving on. About an hour later, it's about 8:30-ish local time over in Ukraine. And no photo for this particular one. President Volodymyr Zelensky said in his nightly address Wednesday that he called Russia's decision to cut gas pipelines to Bulgaria and Poland because they wouldn't pay in rubles blackmail. So remember, yesterday we said that was kind of the buzzword going around all the media. He decided to jump in on that bandwagon too. His choice of words echoed all other European leaders, like Commissioner President Ursula von der Leyen and Bulgarian Prime Minister Kirill Petkov. Zelensky said Russia sees a united Europe as a target. Duh. Russia considers not only gas, but any trade as a weapon, he says. It is just waiting for the moment when one or another trade area can be used. He said stability will follow if European nations agree to stop spending or depending on Russia for gas and other trade. Sidebar. This story is about calling out embargoes and trades, right? The last story, I think it's the last story I've got for you, is warped. And it's like, why is it that Germany just can't take a side and not look like post-Nazi assholes? You're going to find out in a minute. I'll tell you why. We'll get to that.
Germany.
It's Germany, right? It's Germany doing Nazi things. Still.
Ever since before, even after Angela Merkel took power.
Well, she's gone.
9.
She's gone.
No, I'm talking as
He's
far as the
gone.
political history of their being in power even before her.
Yeah. Well, I got a story for you later about why I think Germany is still, I don't know. There's like for a country of such brilliant engineering industry and just brilliant engineers in general, like they are Europe's finest problem solvers in terms of engineering. They've had a history of this. But they're also some of the biggest morons. And you'll see why in a minute. I'll get to that. This is just foreshadowing. Anyway, moving on. I got this photo here for you. This is Antonio Guterres. About an hour later, so it's about 9:45. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres plans to meet with Ukrainian President Zelinski on Thursday in Kiev. Remember, he met Putin 2 days ago. Meeting comes after Guterres met with President Putin in Moscow on Tuesday. See? The United Nations said that they agreed on arranging evacuations from a besieged steel plant in the battered city of Mariupol. Bullshit. While he also said that he would meet with Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba. Right. Moving on. We're going to go through these quick tonight. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to hold back a sneeze because it's rude to do that on in the mic. Oh, I hate this feeling. It's like there's a piece of pepper stuck up your nose.
Yep.
I will not sneeze. Okay, I think I got it. That pause was brought to you by white flower oil, the stuff I shove up my nose when my sinuses are driving me crazy. Yeah, it burns a little bit, makes your eyes water, but good God, does it clear you out in seconds. All right. 10:41 a.m. Ukrainian time. Russia is picking up the pace of its offensive in eastern Ukraine with the goal of gaining full control of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, Ukraine's general staff said Thursday morning. The Russians are exerting intense fire from all directions, Ukraine said, including Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. But Ukraine has repelled 6 attacks in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions in the past 24 hours. Most of the attacks have come from Slobozhansk and Donetsk directions. Getting really good at pronouncing these. Oh, good evening, Randy. Sorry. If you saw where I got the chat in relation to all my other screens, it's something I have to force myself to turn my head to look at, so my apologies. Moving on. This was a trifecta of stories I got all at once, so this is all at the same time. Residents of the Russian-occupied Kherson in southern Ukraine fear that the Russians are preparing for a sham referendum next month to turn it into a pro-Moscow People's Republic, which Kherson Mayor Igor Kolikayev says would be illegal because it officially remains part of Ukraine. Kherson has been spared the death and destruction of other Ukrainian cities because they, quote, are trying to give the impression that they come in peace to liberate us or something. That's the exact quote. To liberate us or something. The local teacher in the area told the Associated Press, so that's an AP story. The soldiers patrol and walk around silently. They don't shoot people in the streets, she added. Another local called the occupation scary and said that almost no one in Kherson wants it to become part of Russia. Russia's been silent about any plans to hold a referendum in Kherson, with Deputy Foreign Minister Andrei Rudenko saying that this week he knew of no such proposal. All right, so the third of the three stories. Russian troops attacked 2 educational centers. I do have that photo right there, actually. Russian troops attacked 2 educational centers in the Donetsk region on Wednesday. This came from Regional Governor Pavlo Kirilenko. 2 educational institutions in the center of the Donetsk region came under Russian fire yesterday. The gymnasium in Dobropilia and the vocational mining lyceum of Belozersky. The governor said, according to the translation, since the start of the large-scale invasion, the Russians have damaged or destroyed at least 300 educational institutions in the Donetsk region. How's that for translating? Ha ha! Yeah, that one rolled off the tongue pretty easily. Moving on. About an hour later, it's about a quarter to lunchtime, noon-ish, so it's like 11:40-ish. Russia is intensifying its attacks on the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol, the last Ukrainian holdout in the besieged port city, satellite photos show, according to the AP. Azovstal Steelworks is the Alamo of Ukraine, if those of you weren't aware. It was also supposed to be left alone, according to Vladimir Putin, last Sunday. They've attacked it every fucking day since he made that declaration. No, we're not going to attack it. We're just gonna blockade it so we force them to surrender. And on Monday, he hit it with bunker buster bombs. On Tuesday, he hit it with Willie Pete's. Yesterday and today, infantry attacks. That doesn't look like we're not going to attack it, but
Remember
whatever.
what the soldiers in the rest of the world said to Russia when they said to drop their arms and leave the factory.
Yeah.
No one believes you.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's all I have to say to Putin.
Exactly. Around 1,000 civilians and 2,000 Ukrainian service members are hiding inside the plant's labyrinth of underground facilities. Russian President Vladimir Putin last week told Russian troops it wasn't necessary to storm the plant. He proclaimed victory in the city despite not having control of it. The new images come as Secretary General Antonio Guterres visits Ukraine and plans to speak to Ukraine's president about his efforts to negotiate with Moscow for a corridor for people to leave the besieged area. Listen. The UN Secretary General calls it a humanitarian corridor. The Russian general on the ground calls it a funnel and a kill box. Duh. All right, so.
We call it Highway of Death.
We could. That's what we would have called it the Highway of Death if we hit that stupid convoy on day 1.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, air attacks on Azovstal do not subside. No silence, but attempts to storm again and again. This came from Petro Andrushenko, an advisor to Mariupol's mayor, and he wrote this on his Telegram page Wednesday. Daniel asks, did you see that we're going to start paying Ukrainian pensions in that bill passed today? I think I have that as part of one of the stories, so sit tight and we'll try to get to that. But I did see that was a part of it. That is always a part of a refugee referendum, though. It's just we're going to get you on your feet while you're getting adjusted to your new country, that kind of thing. I have a friend who came here from Bosnia, and I have another friend who came from Serbia, and I have learned very quickly never to put those two in the same room. But they both came here under refugee visas. Their families were given the same type of thing. So that part of that bill doesn't surprise me in the least.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of money we're wasting at the fucking border. Promise you. All right, moving on. Let's see. We are now at, it's still 1:45, so it's a couple minutes later. I got it listed as 11:46, so we're still in the AM. And I'm going to give you this, metrosexual model. I think his name is Jens Stoltenberg. You also know him as the Secretary General of NATO. I don't know. He just looks like he should be like holding an apple or something and modeling it for television. Finland and Sweden will be warmly welcomed into NATO if they decide to join, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said Thursday, adding that he expected the process to go quickly. I'm confident that there are ways to bridge that interim period in a way which is good enough and works for both Finland and Sweden, Stoltenberg said from Brussels. He said he planned to speak to Finnish Prime Minister Sanna Marin during the day. Russia has issued nuclear threats to both countries if they join NATO. Sidebar. If he can have the nerve to say that he's confident that there are ways to bridge the interim period and they'll be warmly welcomed and the process will go quickly, why the fuck didn't you put Ukraine in NATO 8 years ago?
Mhm.
Or are you going to tell me because I didn't have the job back then? You notice that? He'll let in Finland and Sweden. He hasn't said shit about Ukraine.
Well, you know why, right?
Ukraine can join the EU, but he can't join NATO? Tell me
You know
why. Enlighten
right?
me.
I'll tell you why right now.
Mm.
And it goes down to one thing before that people have been harping on since day one.
Money.
Money. Sweden and Finland both have money and both have, resources. What does Ukraine have?
Wheat.
As everybody's been saying, wheat and nothing else.
Actually, no. You know what? I think it's fair to say that one of the biggest exports, aside from agriculture, from Ukraine, is energy. They have the largest nuclear power plant in Zaporizhia. 6 reactors there.
They had until Russia seized them all.
No. They never took it. They never took that one. They took Chernobyl, but then they released it 38 days later. Because the IAEA is monitoring it now. They're on site. But I think one of the biggest exports in Ukraine is nuclear energy. They have that plant. They also have the biggest hydroelectric plant in the region, in the same city. They have another nuclear plant that's I think 100 miles north of that, and then they have the whatever's left in Chernobyl. So yeah, energy, probably energy.
They've got energy and nothing else though.
Well, then they have wheat,
people say,
corn.
Oh no, they've got lithium.
Corn,
Nobody needs lithium.
oats, sorghum. They do grains.
Lithium.
Well, yeah, but how much, honestly? In the grand scheme of
Actually,
things.
it's pretty damn big.
But that was the point
Deposit.
people have been harping on all the time.
I don't
They
know.
don't
After
have
all that
major
shit in Afghanistan, I think we only came out with 200,000 tons of lithium.
Right.
We came out with 3.5 trillion tons of iron ore, though. But they don't want you to know that. They don't want you talking about that.
We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that. No, we didn't go to war for 20 years just for iron, to rebuild a steel industry that was under threat from China, and they still won the Chinese steel or the cheap steel war. We don't talk about that. Moving on. About 3 hours later, and I think I did list this as possible story of the day, just because of how important it is. So here's a photo for you. And 2:47 p.m. Ukrainian time. Russian President Vladimir Putin's deadly war in Europe is on the brink of expanding outside of Ukraine, as Kremlin officials alleged Thursday that there have been acts of terrorism in Moldova. Moscow set its sights on Moldova last week when a Russian general said its goal was to gain full control over not only eastern Ukraine, but regions along its southern border that sit above the Black Sea. This would allow Russia to gain better access to Transnistria, an unrecognized breakaway state in Moldova with sympathetic ties to Russia. We are alarmed by the escalation of tension in Transnistria, where in recent days there have been several incidents of shelling, blowing up social and infrastructure facilities. This came from Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova. We regard these actions as acts of terrorism aimed at destabilizing the situation. Zakharova's comments came after explosions were reported in the separatist region this week, reportedly hitting the Ministry of State Security in the city of Tiraspol, the region's capital. A second target was reported Tuesday after radio antennas that broadcast Russian programs in Mayak, a town around 7 miles from Moldova's border with Ukraine, were struck down. But, despite a history of tense relations, Moldova and Transnistria have held a treaty agreement since 1992, and signs of a thawing Cold War mentality were evident even earlier this year. As part of the 1992 peace treaty, Russia has maintained a presence in Transnistria with roughly 1,500 troops stationed there as peacekeepers. The similarities shared by the Moldovan breakaway region and the Ukrainian self-proclaimed Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics in the Donbass, which served as Putin's justification for his illegal invasion in February, has many concerned. Reports surfaced this week suggesting that officials in the region suspect Russia was behind the attacks in Transnistria as a guide to support a second illegal invasion. We strongly condemn attempts to involve Transnistria in what is happening in Ukraine, Russia's spokesman claimed. Every now and then sensational statements are heard from there about the preparation of Russian peacekeepers, the Tiraspol airfield, Transnistria conscripts for some kind of offensive actions. But all of these statements do not cast doubt on the fact that the situation on the left bank of the Dniester, including the security zone, is reliably controlled by the joint peacekeeping forces, she added. Zakharova's comments echo sentiments expressed by Russia in the lead-up to its invasion in February, which it has dubbed a special military operation. Putin has claimed its troops will liberate Russian supporters that it alleges, without evidence, have been oppressed by regional authorities. This is what I'd like to know. You have Donetsk and Luhansk in Ukraine. It is
And
a
Crimea.
and Crimea, and well, not Crimea. Crimea was annexed and taken. But you have Donetsk and Luhansk, which is supposedly full of Russian separatists that don't want to be Ukrainian, right? And you have this
correct.
area of Moldova called Transnistria with Russian separatists that don't want to be Moldovans, right?
Uh-huh.
What if this was the United States and California said, we don't want to be part of the United States anymore, fuck you, we're separating?
And
Go
was
to
filled
fucking
with
communist
Mexicans.
China then.
No, I mean, think about the implications of a state trying to break away from the nation it is part of, right? One of two things is going
Isn't
to
that what
happen.
started the Civil War?
Sort of. One of two things is going to happen. The rest of the nation is going to bear down on you militarily and crush that thought out of the region.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're just going to tell everybody, if you don't like it, fucking leave.
News.
And just deport all their asses to Russia. You want to be Russian so fucking bad? Go to Russia. I mean,
but
do
you
it. Do what my governor did. Stick them on a bus, club them over the head. Don't even put them on a bus. Fuck it. Club them over the head, throw them in the back of a Ryder truck, drop their asses off with nothing but socks and Speedos on in the coldest part of Russia and be like, enjoy your new life. Fuck off. That's how you treat them.
Sean,
Hmm?
I think most of the country, most of the country that has their head screwed on straight, would say if California decided it wanted to leave the United States, they would say, "Don't let the door hit you on the way out."
No, because you're not. There's something about you're not supposed to be able to secede from the union or some shit. You see what I'm saying, though, right? It's like the people of any state. Let's say Florida wanted to do it.
You say that, but let me point two things
You're
out.
fucking up my
One,
example.
Texas,
Yes.
and South Carolina. And
Yes.
before you say South Carolina never
You
surrendered.
never surrender. I know that.
So South Carolina could secede again if they wanted to.
Point is if people want to be separatists, deport their ass. Like, just look. You don't want to be here? Fine. You have the right to leave. Go. You know. Mass exodus. Bye. Bye. Where would you like to go? We'll put you on a boat, send you there. Right? It's a short trip across the Black Sea. We'll even make sure that there's no holes in the boat. You know? We'll even put you on the mosque. Oh, wait, too late. That's at the bottom.
Nope.
Anyway. Moving on. I'm trying to get us through these quick. Yeah, I'm going to have to get Jimmy to, like... He's going to have to make me, like, a 80s hair metal shrieky intro for the War Room for real. I'd play it. Fuck yeah. If those of y'all don't know, the theme song to the New Watch podcast is sang by the host. Does a really good job. Good job, Jimmy.
Yeah, it was pretty
It's
good.
like you were born a couple decades too early or too late. Like you would have been big
Late.
in the 80s. Hell yeah. All right, moving on. Let's see. I fucked up my own timeline. I'm sorry. 3 hours later. So now it's 10 o'clock my time. I should be at work. I'm probably still driving and running late like I do every day. Thankfully, I have an understanding boss, and I've got 20 years of tenure. 11:07 a.m. Eastern Time. This is where I'm going to start making you vomit. So I'm sorry. Boom. President Biden on Thursday is sending Congress proposals for new legislation allowing the U.S. to further crack down on Russian oligarchs as punishment for Moscow's bloody invasion of Ukraine, the White House had announced. The proposed measures, which the White House says were drafted in close coordination with the Treasury, Justice, State, and Commerce departments, will, quote, enhance the United States government's authority to hold the Russian government and its oligarchs accountable for Putin's war against Ukraine. This package of proposals will establish new authorities for the forfeiture of property linked to Russian kleptocracy. Wait a minute. Sorry. Let me finish reading that, I guess. Allow the government to use the proceeds to support Ukraine and further strengthen related law enforcement tools, the White House added in a statement. Sidebar, because I have to do it. Biden is saying that he is coming up with new ways for us to be kleptomaniacs to steal from the Russian kleptocracy. We're going to justify seizing all your assets. Like, your boat's in my dock. That's mine now. This is mine. Mine.
Well, that's what Russia did to the aircraft.
I guess.
Runways.
I guess. I don't know. It's just like...
all owned by foreign companies.
I read a story, and I couldn't confirm... They couldn't even confirm. But I read a story about a country trying to seize a gorgeous super yacht. I think it was yesterday. Because they thought it belonged to an oligarch, right? They thought it was. They didn't even know. And they were trying to find a way that they could legally steal it in the name of, this belongs to a Russian oligarch. It's ours now. We have sanctions against you. Now, let me ask you something. Say they take the boat. Who takes ownership of it?
The state.
The government.
The United States government.
So, let me get this straight. Joe Biden comes up with a new way to steal a $700 million yacht, and then it's just waiting in port for him when he gets out of office? Fuck that.
Pretty much at this point.
Yep.
Well, then you know what he needs to do? He needs to seize 366 million yachts. One for all of us.
Well,
sure we can make that happen.
Maybe give it to the United States government.
You know
maybe it's going to be yacht force money.
I don't even want a yacht. I don't even want a yacht. Just
You know,
steal me an Akula class submarine.
Hey, Sean, I have a crazy idea. You might not like it, but it's the best option, in my thinking.
Steal me an Akula class submarine?
No, why don't we just contact the Russian mafia and let them take out Putin?
Don't you think they would have done that by now?
If they cared, they would have done that by now.
I don't think they don't do that because
We did it with
they work
Mussolini.
for him. No, they work
We did
for
it-
him.
We did it
Or
with
they're scared
Mussolini.
of
though.
No, but they work for him. He pays them.
Bullshit.
You call them the mafia, we call them oligarchs. Let's not kid ourselves. Not all
You
of
telling
them.
me they're working with Putin all the time?
Yes.
And what mafias in Russia are against them?
What do you never hear happen in Russia?
I've seen Russian raids.
No. What have you never heard happen in Russia? Ever.
Deaths of reporters, for one, and I haven't really been seeing more articles pop up about that.
You never hear of Al-Qaeda terrorist attacks in Russia. Ever.
Oh, yeah,
You never
that's true.
hear of
ISIS.
ISIS, ISIL, ice cream. You never hear of any of that attacking Russia. Why? Because they're all bought
Because they
off.
fucking
Because
kill
they
them on the
made the
spot.
religion
No,
fucking
because they're
illegal.
all bought off. He owns all of them. If he needs to, in his region. I'm not saying he owns the Shah of Iran or whatever. He doesn't own that guy. But like any terrorist groups that might be in his area, he either owns them or he owns the mafia that's keeping them at bay.
That we know of yet.
that we know of. Anyway, let me finish the story. The package of proposals will establish new authorities for the forfeiture of property linked to Russian kleptocracy, allow the government to use proceeds to support Ukraine. Oh, so they're gonna sell them. I'll give you $350. Like, give me a couple of PKMs. I'll give you $350.
I get
Anyway,
it 250.
and further
$350.
strengthen related law enforcement tools. You give me a a Gaz T98 combat pickup truck that's armored, I'll give you $350. It better be diesel. Anyway, among the tools the White House says would be establishing a streamlined administrative authority to seize and forfeit oligarch assets, or, as I like to say, legal justification for theft. You're just stealing. Don't even lie. Enabling the
Or,
transfer of the
as I like
proceeds.
to say, legal justification to steal their shit.
Yeah, we're stealing their shit. Let's not kid ourselves. We're like, this is mine now. Go away. This is mine. If you want to fight back, we'll put you in Gitmo. That's basically what we're doing. Anyway, enabling the transfer of proceeds of forfeited kleptocrat property to Ukraine to remediate harms of Russian aggression and clamping down on sanctions evasion. This proposal would strengthen the United States' ability to investigate and prosecute sanctions evasion by adding the crime of sanctions evasion to the definition of racketeering activity in the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, or, as you know it, the RICO Act. It would also create a new criminal offense, making it unlawful for any person to knowingly or intentionally possess proceeds directly obtained from corrupt dealings with the Russian government. Sidebar. Sidebar. We're going to steal Russian assets. We're going to sell them and give the money, the proceeds, to Ukraine. Right? That's what they said. But they're creating a law that's a criminal offense to make it unlawful for anybody to knowingly or intentionally possess proceeds directly obtained from corrupt dealings with the Russian government. So we stole this shit from the Russians, we sold it, and we're giving you the money. But that's illegal now. Thanks, Joe. You should go sun bleach your leg hair some more.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Did you see what else the government did today?
Well, they did a lot. We're gonna get to it. Trust me, we're getting to all of it today.
I posted in the war never changed. I don't know if you saw that.
20 minutes later, and actually, this one's kind of good. This one's kind of good. Here's a picture. What you're looking at there is called an N-law. Not an in-law, an N-law. I don't know. Maybe it could act like a really bad in-law. I mean, it's German, and it's, it's obviously going to do something about its Russian wife very soon when they catch it within its sights. German lawmakers on Thursday voted to send heavy weapons and complex machinery to Ukraine, literally 1 week after claiming that its arms reserves were tapped. Oh, look, we just managed to find this warehouse full of this stuff. Never mind that we said we weren't going to give you any. Apparently we got our shit pushed in by the whole world, and we weren't ready for that. Ach mein Gott.
I got my shit pushed in, bro.
Yeah.
Good time.
Jimmy
vote-
says it's not as scary as in-law.
I
Jimmy
know.
would know.
He is correct.
And by the way, Sean,
Hmm.
that's a reference from the movie, what was it, Training Day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The vote in the lower house of parliament signifies a complete stance reversal after it had passed with 586 votes in favor, only 100 against, and 7 abstentions. Germany has faced criticism for its reservations on sending significant defensive support Ukraine, notoriously sending 5,000 helmets in the lead up to the invasion. Oh, here's some helmets. That's where that
And
joke
night
came from.
vision.
No, the first part was just the helmets. That's where that joke that I was using came from. It's like, oh, here's some helmets.
Somebody gave him night vision now too.
Yeah, four tube nods. Like, if you're gonna send those to them, you better send me one too. And where's my
Yeah.
fucking MRAP from fucking Afghanistan? I'm
Oh, they gave
I'm
those-
still mad
they
at that.
They gave those to terrorists with that money they left there and all those weapons. But they want to take away your guns.
Man.
Afghanistan.
Anyway,
Afghanistan.
Just last week, German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock claimed that Berlin's armed forces have said that it can no longer supply weapons from its own reserves. German leadership instead pledged to provide training, spare parts, and machinery and facilitate continued arms supplies with other allies. But now, Germany will look to send anti-aircraft systems, I believe that was called the Flakpanzer Gepard, and armored vehicles as Russia looks to ramp up its offensive not only in Ukraine, but it is signaling that it may launch a campaign in neighboring Moldova. German lawmakers also approved the deployment of heavy weaponry and soldiers to NATO nations in the Eastern Bloc. Some lawmakers, including members of the far-right Alternative for Germany party, voted against the measure over concerns that it could be interpreted as a declaration of war by Russia. Oh no. Similarly, members of the Socialist Left Party reportedly pointed to comments made by Chancellor Olaf Scholz regarding fears that enhanced NATO support could escalate the conflict and prompt a greater nuclear threat. Ach mein Gott. The Thursday vote comes just 2 days after a summit at the U.S. Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany, attended by 40 allied nations from NATO and beyond, where German Defense Minister Christine Lambrecht agreed to send tanks to Ukraine. Really? You're sending Leopard 2A7s? Really? That's news to me. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin championed the stance reversal and said he thinks their heavy weaponry will provide real capability to Ukraine. Well, no shit.
Well, didn't you hear they're also sending Challenger 2s to Ukraine?
Nice. He said he would not speculate.
Not Germany, but I think Britain was...
Well, yeah, because fucking Germany doesn't use Challengers. They use Leopard 2A7s.
England does Challengers.
England used Challengers. And Centurions. I don't know if they still use Centurions. Maybe.
I think they still have some in stock.
That'd be fine. But the defense secretary added, based upon everything I've seen in my interaction with the Minister of Defense and how intently she has been focused on making sure that she can do everything she can to help and work alongside our partners and allies, that she'll continue to look for ways to be relevant and provide good capability to the Ukrainians as they continue to prosecute this fight. Listen, honey. As long as you don't follow the...
mustache.
No. I was going to say, as long as she doesn't follow the
Angela.
Kamala Harris school of providing help by bringing really thick knee pads, I think she'll be fine. Just don't follow Kamala Harris. Don't follow her anywhere. Don't even follow her to hell. Anyway. Moving on.
She can't help that. She's a politician.
I don't know. I keep trying to find out or trying to remind myself who Annalena Baerbock reminds me of. And some of you will know who I'm talking about, and some of you won't, and that's okay. But there was this... shit, I can't remember her name now. Never mind.
Never mind.
Never mind. I can't remember her name. Like, whatever. She looks like a porn actress, that's all I can tell you. It's going to drive me nuts, because I had it on the tip of my tongue just before I said I can't remember. Fuck. Anyway, moving on. It's really going to drive me crazy. Anyway, whatever. Out of sight, out of mind. All right, so 10:30 a.m. Central Time, my time, and we're going back to Washington, D.C., and I have to, give you some more Joe Biden. Oh, sorry. President Biden on Thursday requested $33 billion from Congress for additional security, military, and humanitarian assistance for Ukraine. I think this is a really long story, by the way, so just sit tight and bear with me. And for U.S. efforts to strengthen European security in cooperation with NATO allies and partners. I just signed a request to Congress for critical security, economic, humanitarian assistance to help Ukraine continue to counter Putin's aggression, the president said from the White House Thursday. What the fuck, dude?
Dude.
And at a very pivotal moment, we need this bill to support Ukraine in its fight for freedom, and our NATO allies, our EU partners, they're going to pay for their fair share of the costs as well. That sounds like something Trump would have said. But he would have said it before anything else. He'd been like, look, I'm going to do this, but you're paying yours too. He added, but we have to do this. We have to do our part, as well as leading the alliance. It's funny coming from a guy who leads from the basement. The president said that the cost of this fight is not cheap, but caving new aggression is going to be more caving new aggression is going to be more costly. We either back Ukrainian people as they defend their country, or we stand by as the Russians continue their atrocities and aggression in Ukraine. Every
I mean,
day.
like he's doing right now.
Yeah, yeah. Because, if he really wanted to crush the Russians, he would have sent in, 10 million troops from 10 different countries. But no, he's leading from the basement.
Or at least just the detachment of Abrams tanks, and that would have taken care of all the T-72s.
Well, you sort of know that bullshit's about to happen when Biden repeats himself. And this is what he says. Every day, twice, right? The Ukrainians pay the price, and the price they pay with their lives for this fight. So we need to contribute arms, funding, ammunition, and the economic support to make their courage and sacrifice have purpose so they can continue this fight and do what they're doing. The president said that it is critical this funding gets approved, and approved as quickly as possible. Fair enough. Biden said that even before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, he, quote, made clear how the United States would respond. No, you didn't. We said we would not send U.S. troops to fight Russian troops in Ukraine, but we would provide robust military assistance and try to unify the Western world against Russia's aggression. Well, yeah, but talk is cheap. I said I would impose powerful sanctions on Russia and that we would destroy and develop. Wait. Yeah, he says that. We will destroy and develop. We destroy this myth that somehow they can continue to move without the rest of the world. That we deploy additional forces to defend NATO territory, particularly in the east along the Russian and Belarusian borders. It's exactly. See, he did that repeat thing again. What we said we would do, and we did, Biden said. But despite the disturbing rhetoric coming out of the Kremlin, the facts are playing for everyone else to see. Scott's falling asleep.
No, actually, I'm not.
Okay, because I would fall asleep to a Biden speech. I wouldn't blame you. He added, "We're not attacking Russia. We're helping Ukraine defend itself against Russian aggression. And just as Putin chose to launch this brutal invasion, he could make the choice to end this brutal invasion." He also added that Russia's the aggressor. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Russia's the aggressor, and the world must and will hold them accountable. He also says that as long as the assaults and atrocities continue, we're going to continue to supply military assistance. The Biden administration is calling for $20.4 billion in additional security assistance for Ukraine, including $5 billion in additional drawdown authority, $6 billion for the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, and $4 billion for the State Department's Foreign Military Financing Program. That funding would provide additional artillery, armored vehicles, anti-armor, and anti-air capabilities, accelerated cyber capabilities, and advanced air defense systems, assistance to clear landmines, improvised explosive devices, and other explosive remnants of war in order to address threats related to chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear materials, and put NATO at a stronger security posture. This is a long story. With regard to economic aid, the administration is calling for $8.5 billion in assistance for Ukraine to address and respond the government's continues functioning, and respond as the government continues functioning. I don't know why they worded that so badly. To ensure that they can provide food, energy, and health care to the Ukrainian people, counter Russian disinformation and propaganda narratives, because you did that so fucking well on Twitter, and to support businesses during the fall harvest, and for natural gas purchases by the Ukrainian State Energy Company in order to address the needs in Ukraine. These resources will put urgently needed equipment into the hands of Ukraine's military and police, as well as help NATO deter and defend against Russian aggression over the long term, an administration official said Thursday. According to another official, $3 billion in additional humanitarian assistance will provide critical resources to address food security needs around the globe, and will help to purchase high thermal blankets, so now you have blankets to go with your helmets, medical supplies, emergency health kits, safe drinking water, and shelter materials for Ukrainians displaced by the war. Here's some Mylar blankets. Sorry, I'm doing this whole Stephen Wright under the breath thing, aren't I? The funding would also go towards job training, trauma-informed mental health services, and resources for local school districts to support Ukrainians arriving in the United States. This is still going. The administration is also Don't worry. I think I have a total amount because I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you. I think there's a total at the very end of this. The administration is also asking for funding to bolster the Justice Department's Klepto Capture Task Force, also known as Deliberate White-Collar Thievery, efforts to preserve high-value asset seizures from sanctioned individuals related to Russian actions in Ukraine. Biden is also calling for an additional $500 million in domestic food production assistance to support U.S. food crops that are experiencing a global shortage due to the war in Ukraine, like wheat and soybeans. If we really wanted to help them with food, why don't we just get all the MRE facilities going, double shifts right now and just send a ton of MREs? Especially beef stew. It's so good. And chili mac. That's really good too. And chicken teriyaki, as a matter of... Man, they're all really good these days. Because they got rid of the vomilet back in like 2003 or 4.
Yeah.
That smelled like a sweat sock. It was disgusting.
Yeah. It was
Anyway. Additional funding will also allow the use of the Defense Production Act to expand domestic production of critical minerals and materials that have been disrupted by Putin's war in Ukraine and that are necessary to make anything from defense systems to automobiles. This will help address economic disruptions and reduce price pressures at home and around the world, the official said. America and our allies must continue to deliver, an official says. Today, the president will speak about the critical resources required for the United States to maintain our high-level assistance over the months to come. Yeah, there's more. Sorry, I told you this was a big story. The official said that the president's funding request is what we believe is needed to enable Ukraine's success over the next 5 months of this war. And we have every expectation that our partners and allies, particularly those of the G7, as well as many other countries, will continue to provide comparable levels of assistance going forward. This is a lot of word salad, I know. So that each of us is doing our part. This war will not end easily or rapidly, but the free world is united against this brutal invasion, and we must continue to be in the best position possible to respond to a variety of scenarios, the official continued. President Biden will call on Congress to keep this up. The emergency supplemental funding request comes after the Biden administration last week announced another $800 million in military aid for Ukraine, including heavy artillery and ammunition as the country continues to fight to defend itself against Russia's multi-front war. That funding was in addition to an authorization of $800 million in weapons, ammunition, and other security assistance earlier this month. That $1.6 billion the president approved this month for Ukraine came in addition to more than $1 billion the Biden administration already sent to the Ukraine. So, $2.6 billion is the total so far. Here's the thing, though. Isn't that just a drop in the bucket these days? I mean, think about the omnibus spending bills in the trillions just for this country. In peacetime.
Really should read that topic.
That is a country at war, and it's $2.6 billion. I think our last bill was what? $4 trillion? Just for us? Yeah? Yeah, okay. Let me catch up on some of the chat, because there was a lot to read. Let's see. Put on a helmet and hide under an IKEA desk. I'm sitting behind an IKEA desk, as a matter of fact. I forgot what this thing was called. It's giant, and I don't think they make it anymore. Because I went over there because I wanted to buy the little half moon end cap, and they don't sell that anymore. I think it's called a Beskar or something like that. I don't remember. Whatever. I bought this thing like 10 years ago. Anyway, yeah, I think $1 billion's a drop in the bucket these days. So, yeah. Yeah. We spend trillions, we give billions. Yeah, whatever. Moving on. Let me get this guy out of your screen here. This next one, this one's pretty good because I have the jacket. So when I saw the patch, I freaked out. I was like, oh my god, they're there! Holy shit! Here you go. I have that outfit the guy's wearing. 7:35 p.m. Ukrainian time. Kiev on Thursday warned that Russian-backed separatist groups in Moldova are recruiting for their ranks as Moscow threatens to expand its campaign outside of Ukraine. In a statement released by Ukraine's Ministry of Defense, officials said a letter was sent out to the heads of local administrations in the breakaway region of Transnistria in eastern Moldova last week. The letter, which was provided in coordination with the statement, reportedly shows that all men under the age of 55 have been asked by the Ministry of Defense of Transnistria to join a special meeting for 90 days to bolster its army. The recruitment push will ensure 100% staffing of the peacekeeping contingent of the Transnistrian Moldovan Republic, as well as to provide employment for the working population of the Republic, a translation provided by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry said. Those who join the ranks will be provided financial and material support, accommodation, and food. A sum of 2,800 Transnistrian rubles will also be granted. Though, because Transnistria is not internationally recognized, its ruble cannot be converted into any foreign currencies outside of the breakaway region, making it unclear what the conversion rate to the US dollar is. Despite the current calls for voluntary enlistment for a 90-day period, Ukraine's defense ministry said that it has received information to suggest that enrollment is actually compulsory. Let me sort of translate that for you. There's a breakaway region in the poorest country in the area, Moldova. So basically what it is the Russians own crusty land in Moldova, and they're willing to pay you in crusty bucks. Do you remember that episode of The Simpsons? Where they went to Krusty Land, and it was a new park where nothing worked, and as soon as they walked in, they were like, come convert your money to crusty bucks. It's the most fun currency on the planet. They buy a shit ton of crusty bucks. They walk into the park, and every building has a sign saying, we do not accept crusty bucks. You remember that?
Kind of like Bitcoin.
No, Bitcoin actually pays. I mine
I'm just saying
I mine
it's
it.
the opposite.
It's definitely the opposite. I have a friend who bought a house with it, so.
Well, what Russia does is moves a bunch of Russians into a country, and then those Russians declare a breakaway region.
Right, but they're going to pay you in a currency of the breakaway region that's not recognized anywhere else in the world. It's like buying tokens at the arcade.
Of course, they don't want you to be able to leave.
Right. It keeps you there because it's the only place that accepts the currency. It's prison.
Yep.
It's political prison. Here's your
It's
tokens
not prison.
for...
It's not prison. It's technically it's entrapment.
Yeah, well, it's like, welcome to Chuck E. Cheese's. We're paying you in Chuck E. Cheese tokens, and no, you can't use this shit anywhere else. Anyway, for those of you who don't know, that picture that I'm showing you, that's a sober unit. That is, imagine there's, okay, so there's a Russian Spetsnaz, right? And then there's a Russian Spetsnaz military police. That's called Oman, which says homo backwards, which is why I didn't buy that patch. And then there's the Russian Special Forces Police SWAT team. They're Special Police Specials, plus P plus P plus. That's sober. Those guys, they have no regard for human life. They're the most savage people on Earth.
Would you say this is the modern day Gestapo in Russia?
No, more like Stasi.
No, it's the FSB.
Yeah, it's like a military wing of the FSB.
Yeah.
But they're like plus P plus special forces, right? They're like super special forces, which is why I have those patches on my jacket, just like that guy's.
So they're like,
because it doesn't say homo when you stand in a mirror. Yeah, they're in Moldova.
You know we speak English.
They're in Moldova. You should be very scared. Like, I have a friend who lived in St. Petersburg during those protests in the beginning of this war, and he said when Oman shows up, you should probably leave. But if sober shows up, you better be somewhere else. Don't be anywhere near those guys. I mean, they're the ones who were disappearing people in Moscow and St. Petersburg to the tune of, what, 14,800 people? Protesters? They're all gone. Nobody knows where they went. Like, they have lists of names, and nobody knows where they are. Because nobody dares ask. If you ask, that guy shows up to your door. Then you disappear. No thanks. Moving on. I got through that big story, and I'm glad to say that we've only got, like, Oh, it was Itchy and Scratchy Land. You're right. And they had, was it Krusty Bucks or something like that? I'm glad you remembered that, but I'm glad somebody saw the episode. You're right. Anyway, moving on. I think I've only got three stories left, so we will get through this relatively quickly. It's going to go a little over an hour, but I've been trying to read really fast like the Micro Machines dude from back in the day. So,
I remember
if
that.
yeah, if all these stories came out to you a little too hot, too heavy, too fast, too furious, too Eric Holder selling Mexican weapons to our weapons to Mexico that get our guys killed too fast, just play it back on the replay at 75% speed, and then everything will sound fine. It'll just be like Quaalude TV, you know? Moving on. 12:49 p.m. my time. It's 7:49 p.m. Ukraine. Dusk. Yeah. Sunset in Kiev, right? That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Long walks in the battlefields of Kiev. Anyway, here we go. Ukraine on Thursday championed its evolving partnership with NATO as full interoperability and said that it has gained access to the alliance's modern weaponry and as its war with Russia continues for the 9th week. More than 40 NATO members and allied nations from around the world met for U.S.-led talks in Germany and agreed to provide more aid for Ukraine this week. Sorry, I gotta grab a drop real quick. Ukrainian Minister of Defense Alexei Reznikov said Thursday that there had been tectonic shifts at the level of philosophy when it comes to Kyiv's relationships with NATO and other allied nations. Was it Itchy and Scratchy Bucks? Okay. For a long time, we have been convincing our partners that it is advisable to provide Ukraine with Western compliant systems or weapons that meet NATO standards, he says. The transition to Western calibers and technology is a strategic decision that has finally been made. Gradually, this will ensure full interoperability of the Ukrainian army with the armies of NATO countries, Reznikov added. The defense minister said that since taking up his post last year, he made joining the 30-member alliance a top priority. It is unclear if Ukraine will still seek to join NATO, given Ukrainian President Zelinski's since Zelensky conceded the ambition last month amid peace talks with Moscow. Sidebar: listen, Volodymyr Zelensky, President Volodymyr Zelensky, love you, dude. Brave. You put on a strong face. You kept your country together. You have been a badass on the global stage, okay? You are allowed to lie to Russia. I'm telling you that right now, because them fuckers have been lying to you for the last 64 fucking days. You can say you're not joining NATO, but just fucking join NATO. Anyway, especially since Jens Stoltenberg is so willing to fast-track Sweden and Finland. You should be like, yo, what the fuck about me? Anyway. Talks have stalled and Russia has refused to halt its deadly assault in Ukraine, even suggesting that it will look into neighboring Moldova next. So like I said, if Russia's not keeping up with their end of the deal, why the fuck should you? You better join NATO. The quicker you get accepted, the quicker Article 5 will protect you. Reznikov applauded the U.S. for not only bringing together nations from the European Union and NATO, but from Africa, the Middle East, and Asia to encourage them to provide increased security aid to fend off Russia's advances. This is the real coalition, whose goal is not just to restrain the Kremlin, but to defeat Russian tyranny, to provide the civilized world with the opportunity to win this war, he said. The defense minister said an advisory group had been established that will meet once a month to coordinate logistics to get Ukraine the security defenses it needs. Okay, so yeah, just get all the countries that surround Russia on board and then crush it. Good idea. The government, that is, not the people. Moving on. And this came as one of those sort of like, I think I have a photo of this too. Yes, actually that's a really good picture of what happened today. 8:54 p.m. Ukrainian time. Now, if you remember in the earlier episodes, I used to tell you this was the time where the Russian Air Force began to really stretch its legs, because at the time the Russian infantry, at least in that region of the battle, in the northwest, they were hopeless. They were useless. They didn't even have night vision that worked, right? So they relied heavily on the Air Force at night. Well, 8:54 p.m. Ukrainian time. Dark, right? Kiev mayor and former heavyweight champion Vitaly Klitschko said Thursday that 2 missiles have struck the cities. Okay, this is a big Cyrillic. Shevchenkivsky. I don't know if I can pronounce this one. Shevchenkivsky. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. It's Shevchenkivsky. Wow, that's not an easy Cyrillic to read. Anyway, Shenchevkivsky. The more I say it, the easier it's getting. In the evening, the enemy fired on Kiev, he said in a Telegram post. All services are in place. Information about the victims is being clarified. I think that's the hardest one I've had to say so far. Confirmation comes as users have been posting videos on social media, reportedly showing black smoke rising into the sky over Kiev. Right there. That's a pretty big fire. I mean, if you look at that skyline, those are some big buildings, which means that is a big fire. Like, there's a skyscraper between those 2 lights on the left. Or just a tall building. That's a big fire. Anyway, moving on. This is the last story I have for you today. So I finally get to set you guys free. And I'll probably get you out of here in an hour 15. 4:52 p.m. Central Time. This was the last story I was able to get and cover because this was the last time I was checking my bank account to see if my wire got through so I can buy my fucking RPK, which is now out of stock. I'm not bitter. Anyway.
You kind of sound bitter.
You shut up. 11:52 p.m. Berlin. Not done picking on the Germans today. German energy company. Now, I'm bringing this all back around about why I think the Germans are kind of shitlords right now. First, they said they didn't have the military equipment. Now they say, I've got the military equipment. Look, we found all these tanks in the warehouse. We're going to send them to you. It ain't great? Yeah. And then they turn around and said, we're gonna block all Russian imports of energy and gas and whatever. And Russia's like, cool, we just turned off the taps for Poland, Bulgaria, and what was the other one? Romania? Like, they hit 3 of them, right? Right. So, how does the Germans respond? German energy company, Uniper, has conceded to Russia's demands and will utilize the ruble conversion plan outlined by Moscow, despite concerns that it undermines sanctions. Moscow threatened to pull the plug on Europe's gas supplies unless companies fulfilled their payments in rubles. The Kremlin worked with Russian gas company Gazprombank to establish a system that would allow companies to deposit foreign currency in one account while Gazprom would complete the transactions in rubles. So they're basically acting like the middleman doing the transfer. Right? Uniper said Thursday that it had no choice but to use the system, and a spokesman told the BBC that he was confident that the transaction still abides by EU sanctions. For our company and for Germany as a whole, it is not possible to do without Russian gas in the short term. This would have had dramatic consequences for our economy. Ach mein Gott. Other European agency firms reportedly had planned to follow suit and utilize the Russian scheme. The European Commission last week advised companies that Moscow's plan may not violate sanctions, stressing that compliance would likely be necessary to fulfill contractual obligations. The Commission initially said the program could breach sanctions, but this week advised that the proposal does not necessarily violate them. It would be advisable to seek confirmation from the Russian side that this procedure is possible under the rules of the decree, a document from the Commission said, noting that companies should make clear statements that they consider contractual obligations completed when they make their deposits in the original agreed-upon currency, almost all of which would be in dollars or euros. Brussels also said that there were options that could allow companies to continue lawfully paying for gas, but the procedure for securing exemptions was not yet clear. Gazprom on Wednesday said that it had shut off gas to 2 EU nations in retaliation for unpaid energy bills for the month of April when they refused to abide by Moscow's demand and pay in the Russian currency. The announcement by Gazprom is that it is unilaterally stopping delivery of gas to customers in Europe is yet another attempt by Russia to use gas as an instrument of blackmail. This came from EU President Ursula von der Leyen. This is unjustified and unacceptable, and it shows once again the unreliability of Russia as a gas supplier, she added. Von der Leyen said that the EU nations were prepared for this scenario and remained in close contact to identify other means of supplying Poland and Bulgaria with their energy needs. Let me try to summarize that. Russia's ruble became worthless at the beginning of this conflict. So Vladimir Putin, in a fit of genius, to be honest, set up a new way to pay off to have payments sent to him in his currency. And his currency bounced back and surpassed his 52-week high. Which means all the sanctions that were supposed to hurt his economy failed. Instantly failed. Now, they're cutting off gas supplies for
You're
what they
breaking
say
up.
is... Am I?
Yeah.
They're cutting off gas supplies for, quote, non-payment. But what it actually is I'm at war with you. Why would I keep giving you the things you need for energy to continue to fight your war against me? I mean, let's be honest, right?
Right.
And then the people who are getting their energy cut off, they're like, "You're blackmailing us." And it's like, wait a minute, you're attacking me, or you're helping the people I'm attacking attack my people. Why would I continue to give you energy? It's like you're sleeping with the enemy here, and then you're crying foul when they cut the taps off. How about, I don't know, trying to become energy independent like we almost were before a giant bumbling idiot got into the White
were.
House. Right?
We were.
Yeah, we were. They can't be. I mean, okay, yeah. Like Switzerland tried, they failed horribly. Everyone's trying wind and solar and what's the other one? Hydroelectric?
Yeah.
No, like Switzerland has a really good hydroelectric network because they do have quite a number of rivers. But
And lots of mountains.
and lots of mountains, so the rivers flow very quickly. But yeah, at the end of the day, the EU is dependent on Russian gas and oil because there's no giant intake of of gas and oil coming out of Africa, is there? No. Middle East, not as much, not really. So yeah, Russian gas and oil feeds Europe. We're getting to the point now where the lore of Fallout is becoming more and more of a reality, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're getting to the point where society is beginning to demand we embrace the atom. And I'm not particularly against it. I mean, in terms of its production, it is one of the cleanest energies out there. The cooling towers put out water vapor, right? Now, granted, the reactor waste is you got to do something with it, so that is a problem. But think about when was the last time the world developed a new reactor, right? Like, think of how old the nuclear power plants in this country are, and how few of them are actually online. The list is short. It's on Wikipedia. It's a short list.
The last time they developed a new reactor was either the what is it, the liquid salt reactor, or the what you call it, it's another type of reactor that doesn't use.
Just think of the
you know-
last reactor that went online in the United States.
Okay.
It was probably 20 years ago.
Yeah, 20 years ago.
Sounds about right. Think of how far computer technology has come in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Think how far nuclear reactor technology could have gone in 20 years. We have CNC machining. We have much finer Machining. We have better metallurgy, right? Doesn't this sound familiar? This should if you're a gun person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Machine guns today are far better than machine guns of yesterdecade because of how well they're put together. They're better put together. The materials are better. The tolerances are tighter. I mean, here's a good example. Small block Chevy, 350 cubic inch small block Chevy, 5.7 liter for those of you who do metrics. Okay. Think of the most possible horsepower and torque you can build on a small block Chevy, and how it pales in comparison to how easy it is to make 1,000 horsepower with an LS, a 5.3 liter, or a 6 liter, or a 6.6 liter LS engine. It's night and day difference. If you want a good example of this on
That's
YouTube,
right, finite, but liquid thorium reactor.
yeah. If you want a good example of that, there's a channel on YouTube called Faster Proms, and Jeremy, the proprietor, has his father's Corvette. He calls it the Legend. It was his father's C3 or C4 Corvette. It has a highly modified small block Chevy with an experimental fuel injection system, and it still only made like 400 or 500 horsepower. But it was the fastest stick shift small block Corvette in history when they built it. And now, like Cletus's LS Corvettes blow the doors off of it with a whole lot less effort, and they make 3 times the horsepower.
Yeah, but what's Cletus putting in it?
Texas Speed 427 LS with twin turbos and like a Frankenstein intake. I mean, you can everything he has in his engine you can buy for yours now. Like he owns part of Motion Raceworks, so it's like he can give you a parts list. Like, he's not hiding it. He's like, here, Texas Speed 427. While you're there picking up your Texas Speed 427, maybe stop by next door and pick up a new Staccato while you're at it, because they're right next door. They're next door neighbors. Kind of cool. Anyway, my point is, everything has gotten better. The world needs to start embracing the atom, clearly, because their energy demands demand it, right? The Green New Deal doesn't have really a leg to stand on because it doesn't pollute. Nothing comes out of the tower but water vapor. So they can't bitch about that. But you know what else they can't do? They can't interest group and fundraise money from interest groups because they can't sell out to China when they make solar panels and this other bullshit that they keep trying to peddle on us that barely work. Like Texas last February when we almost froze to death. Point is, imagine how far a new reactor could come. It could be smaller, it could be more efficient, it probably produces less waste and doesn't require as much fuel rod either.
What was that about windmills?
They don't work.
Mm.
Not in the scale we need them to work.
Wind generators.
Yeah.
I was about to say, you might want to check with the Dutch on that.
Okay, yeah, let's power a country the size of Florida. That might work there, but think of the United States.
Yeah.
Well, you got to remember, most European countries are actually pretty damn fucking small.
Right, but I mean
the
that's
size of U.S. states.
So. Imagine if you had like Zaporizhia, right? It's got the 6-reactor station, and they're pretty old reactors. Imagine if you built a new one. If you built a new one in Switzerland, you could probably power half of Europe from it. Stuff like that. That's all I'm saying. It's like we become so dependent on other nations for energy that we've forgotten that we should probably figure out ways just to do it ourselves and save the money. Anyway, I'm trying not. I'm going off on a tangent. I told you I'd get you out of here quickly. Anyway, let me check to see if there was any updates, real quick. Let's see.
I posted something in Warner Entertainment.
Yeah, but if I click that, it takes it off the channel, so it's like I can't check that in real time. British national was killed in Ukraine. This came from the UK Foreign Office. The man's name was Scott Sibley, 36. Oh, this is actually post facto because they said he died a few days ago in southern or eastern Ukraine. So they don't even know where he died.
Well, they know where he died. The Ukrainians just aren't telling them.
No, the UK Foreign Office made this release.
Oh, well, like I said, the Ukrainians haven't told them where he died.
Azovstal. Anyway,
Possibly.
that's the only thing. That was the last one I had for you. Unless you guys want to add anything.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The U.S. Congress revives World War II era weapons program for Ukraine. Lend-Lease legislation passed in House of Representatives make it easier for U.S. to send weapons directly to Kiev.
I thought we approved of that like 3 weeks ago.
No, they just did it.
Or was
today.
that just tabled, for a vote?
It was tabled for a vote.
Okay.
The United States Congress has passed Lend-Lease legislation that will make it easier to export military equipment to Ukraine, reviving a World War II era U.S. weapons finance program.
Cool.
The U.S. House of Representatives overwhelmingly backed the Ukraine Democracy Defense Lend-Lease Act of 2022 on Thursday by a vote of 417 to 10.
Wow. That's
Sending the bill to President Joe Biden for a signature. The bill had sailed through the Senate with unanimous support.
all 100. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that the measure revives a World War II era arrangement that allowed Washington to lend or lease military equipment to Great Britain and other allies at a little cost. The new plan will help those affected by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, including Poland and other Eastern European nations. 2 months into the war, members of Congress said that they hoped the act would work as it did decades ago by allowing U.S. companies to quickly resupply partner nations without having to clear bureaucratic hurdles. Today, the Ukrainian people are standing on the front lines in the fight for democracy against tyranny, and the U.S. needs to provide them with every possible measure of humanitarian military aid, said Representative Mary Gay Scanlon, a Democrat. Well, the Lend-Lease financing arrangement allows the U.S. to provide equipment to Ukraine now, with just a technical requirement to pay at some later date, essentially giving it to the Kiev government. Ukrainian forces have demonstrated unbelievable strength and bravery, and we must again serve as the arsenal of democracy and ensure they have the full range of resources necessary to defend their sovereignty. Republican Senator John Cornyn, a lead sponsor of the bill in the Senate, said in a statement. Let's see, how far does this go? Okay, only.
Go ahead. That's fine. Go ahead.
Early in the day, President Biden asked Congress to approve an additional $33 billion in aid for Ukraine, including more than $20 billion for weapons, ammunition, and other military assistance. Biden's request includes $8.5 billion in direct economic assistance to the Ukrainian government and $3 billion in humanitarian aid. It is intended to cover the war efforts needs through September, the end of the U.S. government's fiscal year. We need this bill to support Ukraine in its fight for freedom, Biden said at the White House on Thursday. The cost of this fight, it's not cheap, but caving to aggression is going to be more costly. That's the one thing that man has gotten right. The one thing. Anyways, Congress had previously approved $13.6 billion in military and humanitarian aid for Ukraine, including $3 billion for the U.S. European command operations bolstering the American troops in the region, and $3.5 billion to replenish U.S. stocks of equipment sent to Ukraine. And that's the end of the article.
So, okay. Lend-Lease, typically, we don't give them, like, the newest, latest, and greatest that we're using. For instance, when we did Lend-Lease with Russia, we gave them...
a generation or two back. Usually it's a generation or two back.
Well, sort of. So here's the thing. When we did Lend-Lease with Russia, we were using... I'm trying to think of what's equivalent here. We were using the P-47D. We were using P-51s. We were using P-38 Lightnings. I'm thinking of ETO here, okay? We were flying B-17s and 24s. My uncle flew both of them. But we lend-leased them the P-39 Airacobra and the P-36 Buffalo. I think that's what it's called.
I think that's right.
Yeah. But what's amazing is they made... It was almost like the saying that, you know, the Army makes the weapon, or the Army gets the weapons, but the Marines make them legendary. Well, the P-39 Airacobra was actually, it wasn't a terrible aircraft. It had, its party piece was, I think, a 37 millimeter cannon in the nose, like that went
Wasn't
right
it
through the
just
propeller.
slow?
Huh?
Wasn't its only drawback was
It
that it
didn't
was just
maneuver
slow?
as well as a P-51.
Yeah.
It didn't dogfight as well. But the party piece was, it was a great strafing aircraft because it had that 37 millimeter cannon, and
Right,
it was kind
right.
of like a light duty tank buster. So they made that thing legendary. What do we give the Ukrainians? Well, while you were reading that article, I decided to dig around. And we have hundreds of M60 main battle tanks that were last used in Desert Storm. And they've been sitting sort of mothballed at Fort Hood since, I think, 2004. Just chilling out in various states of disrepair. And it's like,
That's the problem right there.
well, no, because what they were doing was they were starting to pull apart a couple of them to send to other countries who still run them as their main battle tank. But I'm sure if they took an inventory, if you have, I don't know, 1,500 of them sitting in a field at Fort Hood, because I'm looking at it and there's hundreds of them, you could probably make at least 100 good ones. You know what I mean?
The M60s.
Yeah, but how long is it going to take you to do that?
I don't know. Depends on how good the mechanics are.
Weren't the M60 series also a type of patent tank?
It was. It served from
The last evolution of it.
Well, from it's basically the Cold War super tank.
1960 to 1980, I think.
No, we used them in Desert Storm.
Well, the Marines still use them.
Yeah,
Actually,
The Marines primarily operated them.
because
we
the thing
still
is the main gun was still good. Like they still used the main gun in the, I think it's the same main gun as the Abrams, the Rheinmetall
No, it's
105. Or no, sorry, they used the 105. The later ones, the newer ones, are the 120s. But either way,
Yeah.
it's like I'm pretty sure M60s would lay out T72s in mass. Like they wouldn't
You
stand
have
a
to
chance.
update their targeting systems.
Huh?
You'd have to update, the targeting
If
systems.
their targeting systems were updated, yeah, they probably could take on a T-72.
Raytheon updated them to the M60A3 in 2016.
Yeah, but
Pretty
what's
sure
that standard?
it's got the new Raytheon integrated fire and control system. It's got a laser range fire, ballistic computer, gunner's night sight, the whole 9 yards. I mean, shit, they were using IR sensors on them back in the 60s that look like giant headlights. These things are
I
up
know,
to date.
I'm familiar with them.
Yeah, this thing is up to date. I mean, if they updated them in 2016, that's only what? 6 years ago. You're gonna lay out T-72s in mass. There's your lend lease right there. M60s, Fort Hood, send them. We're not
Well-
using them, send them.
Again, remember we were talking. I talked about this on Hit or Miss the other night, and we talked about it on your show a few nights back. But this also plays into the fact that the World War II factories, ammunition factories, going back online after being offline since the end of World War II.
Yeah, there's gonna be some dusting off, and But I mean, this is the time, right? If they're planning that this isn't going to end in months, but rather years, then now is the time to make these things start to move. Now is the time to start bringing out a shit ton of Croyle and start breaking some bolts loose and bring back some M6. Make M60s great again. The gun and the tank.
Yeah.
Bring back the Iron Pig.
Well, I don't know. I think what is it? There was a 240 Bravo.
I'll take an M60.
Yeah, the M60 is good, but
Tank.
I think what they got. Yeah, of course you would.
I'll take the
But-
tank.
I'll take
Actually,
a 63, please.
What I really want is I'd love to fly over to Kubinka Tank Museum in Russia and steal their Object 260 or 279. That flying saucer super tank. I love that thing.
They are getting it running again.
They need it. They're gonna need it.
You might as well reactivate the mouse.
No, because they don't have an engine for it. That's the problem. No, they don't. They really don't. They don't have an
No,
engine for
I
it.
know they don't. I know the Russia, they don't. They don't have the engine for it because that one didn't have an engine. They put that on a train car.
Yes, that one wasn't a completed one. You're right. They didn't have a Maybach engine for it, and the electric motors were no good. So yeah, it's just a static display. You don't want to use that thing anyway. It's a giant pillbox. I mean, it's just one bunker buster away from just being scrap. Actually,
One A-10 strafing run.
technically, the entire Kubinka Tank Museum is a couple of bunker busters away from being scrap, but we don't want to destroy those because they're really cool. Like they're pieces
Actually,
of
no,
history.
the one they got at Kubinka is that's the completed one. That one's got an engine.
No, for the mouse, no,
There were
they don't,
only two
they don't
hulls
have an
made.
engine. There's no engine. If the electric engines are in them that are in there, they're no good. And then the Maybach V12 that was supposed to power the generators for the electric engines, it didn't come with one. They didn't have one, and the Germans weren't going to give them one. After the war, they're like, "Fuck you."
Right now, they can just put something else in there and just make it work.
Yeah, put like
I've-
a gas
I've-
truck
I've-
engine in it or something.
Not
I've
just drop
seen-
in a fucking turbine.
I've seen Russians do crazy shit with
It wasn't a good tank though. It's a giant pillbox that barely moved.
Yeah.
Like
Not
the
s-
Tiger barely moved. I mean, it had the shittiest. Anyway, I don't want to get into a tank
well,
discussion. We'll be here for days.
I'm not saying it's a great tank. I'm saying at this point, Russia may have to use it because it's all they got left.
Okay,
Nah,
if
they'll just start rolling out the T-34s again.
they would be better served doing that. In all honesty, because at least those have speed.
No, if they had any,
And they got a ton of them left.
Yeah, and
they
they
had
they
any-
would be the perfect like armored personnel carrier, essentially.
if they had any ISs left, they'd use those before the T-34s.
No. See, that's the thing. The T-34 transcended the IS tanks. They made
Yeah,
so
that's
few
what's
of
big
those.
and slow.
Well, the IS-3s were brilliant. The 4 was
Yeah.
basically a prototype. And then they went into Object 279, which was supposed to be their Cold War super tank that was nuclear shield. I told you, if we do this, we're going to be here for hours. I'm going to play this.
Play that, and then we can talk
because
about it. About
I got to promise to let you guys go because it's 92 minutes in. I said I wanted to do this shit in an hour.
Sorry, guys, we ran a little long.
No, I will make a promise to you, Mike. We're going to do a tank chat one of these days. I promise. We will definitely do that.
I love talking about tanks. I love talking about
Scott, you'll be here for that too. And we'll do a helicopter chat too, because I actually know a bit about that, and so do you. Anyway, if you're new to my channel, welcome. But if you're a regular here, welcome back. Either way, maybe check out my other playlists and see if my other interests might be of interest to you. Also, maybe like, maybe share, maybe subscribe, or maybe tell somebody else that we're doing this, so we can grow the viewer base. Anyway, this was the War Room. This was Day 64. We will be back tomorrow, news permitting that is, for Day 65. Slava Ukraini,
Heroyam Slava shall not be infringed.
and good night.